In the glittering courts of the Ottoman Empire, the road to the throne was paved with intrigue, blood, and shadows. For every sultan who rose to power, there were brothers, princes of royal blood, who lived their entire lives behind locked doors, destined never to rule. But their stories were not just of quiet exile. They were tales of love denied, friendships betrayed, and dreams strangled before they could take flight. This is the story of the forgotten Ottoman princes, heirs by birth, prisoners by fate. Some were locked away in the palace's infamous Kafes, the cage, for decades, never seeing the outside world again. Others met a more brutal end, executed to secure the throne for another. Tonight, we step into their silent chambers, where the sound of the muezzin's call mingled with whispers of betrayal and death. The Kafes, a secluded wing of the Topkapi Palace, was introduced in the late 16th century as a humane alternative to fratricide, the Ottoman practice of killing royal brothers to prevent succession disputes. But humane was a relative term. The princes were kept in gilded isolation, cut off from politics, war, and in the outside world. They were attended by servants and guarded by eunuchs, their every move watched. For the young princes, childhood in the palace was a golden dream. They were educated by the finest scholars, trained in the arts of war and statecraft, and surrounded by luxury. But as soon as their father or elder brother took the throne, the dream ended. They would be summoned to the Kafes, often without explanation. The heavy doors closed behind them, and the rest of their lives would be spent in confinement, sometimes for decades. One of the most tragic examples was Prince Mustafa, the brother of Sultan Murad Bofors. Handsome, intelligent, and beloved by the court, Mustafa had been groomed for leadership. But Murad, known for his paranoia and iron-fisted rule, saw his brother as a threat. Mustafa spent years in the Kafes, pacing the marble floors, watching the seasons change through narrow latticed windows. Rumors of his mental decline spread through the palace. Some say he would talk to the birds outside his window, believing them to be spies of the Sultan. In rare cases, a prince would emerge from the Kafes to ascend the throne, but the cost of isolation was high. Sultan Ibrahim I, later known as Ibrahim the Mad, had spent most of his life locked away before becoming ruler. The years of confinement shattered his mind, leaving him impulsive, paranoid, and vulnerable to manipulation by court factions and his powerful mother, Kosem Sultan. The unluckiest princes never left at all. When a sultan died, his brothers' fates hung in the balance. If the new ruler felt insecure, executions could follow swiftly, often carried out silently at night by the mute executioners of the palace. Strangulation with a silken bowstring was the preferred method, preserving the royal blood from spilling. But not all forgotten princes faded into obscurity. Some became symbols of resistance for dissident factions within the empire. Palace whispers told of secret letters smuggled out of the Kafes, of eunuchs bribed to pass messages, and of concubines who risked everything to smuggle in news from the outside world. These princes lived on hope alone, hope that the tides of politics might one day turn in their favor. The forgotten sons of the Ottoman dynasty were not just prisoners of stone walls. They were prisoners of a system that valued stability over kinship, power over blood. And while their names are rarely etched into the chronicles of history, their silent presence shaped the empire's destiny in ways unseen. The practice of confining royal princes in the Kafes wasn't born of cruelty alone. It was a calculated political strategy. The Ottoman Empire, stretching across 3 continents, relied on an unshakable chain of command. Civil war between rival princes could tear the empire apart, as had happened in earlier centuries. By isolating the Sultan's brothers, the court avoided public rivalries and secured the ruler's position. But this security came at a cost. The Kafes turned men of ambition into ghosts. A prince's youth, strength, and political instincts would wither, leaving behind someone who might technically inherit the throne but lacked the mental sharpness or leadership to rule effectively. Ironically, the system designed to protect the empire often produced rulers who were unfit to lead. Daily life for these princes was a strange mixture of luxury and imprisonment. Their rooms were richly decorated with silk cushions, Persian carpets, and golden lamps. They had access to books, musicians, and servants, yet could not step beyond the high guarded walls. Some took refuge in poetry or religion. Others slipped into lethargy, spending hours in bed or staring at the courtyard gardens. Meals were brought on silver trays, but the food's taste could not wash away the bitterness of captivity. Even the servants who attended them were carefully chosen to be loyal to the Sultan, ensuring no plots could take root. Any visitor, whether a eunuch or a concubine, was a potential informant. In some cases, a prince could see his fortunes change overnight. When Sultan Ahmed IV died unexpectedly, his brother Mustafa, long kept in the Kafes, was brought out to ascend the throne. The court hoped he would be a pliable figurehead, but years of isolation had damaged his mind. His reign was marked by erratic behavior, and he was eventually deposed, returning once again to the cage. The same fate nearly awaited Prince Mahmud, a son of Sultan Mehmed III. Mahmud was well loved by the Janissaries and feared by his father, who suspected the boy might one day challenge him. Palace intrigue led to Mahmud's execution, despite his youth and popularity. The execution was carried out in silence, the boy's body buried without ceremony. While history remembers the great sultans, Suleiman the Magnificent, Mehmed the Conqueror, the forgotten princes linger as shadows in the chronicles. Their lives serve as a reminder of the empire's ruthless balance between family loyalty and political survival. In the end, the Kafes was less a prison of stone and more a prison of fear. Fear of what a single ambitious prince could do to the stability of the realm. And though their voices were silenced, their absence shaped the Ottoman line of succession for centuries. Among the many princes trapped in the Kafes, one name stood out in hushed palace gossip: Prince Osman, nephew to the reigning sultan. Clever, restless, and dangerously charismatic, Osman refused to let his life wither away in silk-lined captivity. For years, he memorized guard rotations, bribed servants, and built secret alliances with sympathetic eunuchs. One moonless night, his opportunity came. A senior black eunuch, once a soldier, now a quiet enemy of the vizier, unlocked a hidden corridor leading from the cafes to the palace kitchens. From there, Osman slipped through the torchlit courtyards to the stables, where a loyal groom awaited with a swift Arabian stallion. Osman's escape was not an act of desperation, it was a calculated coup. In the early hours, he rode to the barracks of the Janissaries, the elite military force that often decided who wore the crown. He invoked the memory of past sultans who had led the empire to glory, promising rich rewards and military campaigns to restore Ottoman dominance. For a moment, the soldiers listened. Many were weary of the vizier's growing power and the sultan's seclusion. But loyalty to the palace was a double-edged sword. As dawn broke, messengers from the vizier reached the barracks, carrying bags of gold and threats of execution. The Janissaries' resolve shifted. By mid-morning, Osman was surrounded. He did not resist when the palace guards took him, knowing the penalty for rebellion was inevitable. Tradition demanded the execution of royal blood be carried out without shedding it, so the silken bowstring was brought. In a quiet chamber, far from the eyes of the court, Osman's life ended as swiftly as his bid for freedom had begun. The Sultan never spoke of him publicly. The vizier ensured that Osman's name was erased from official records, his memory surviving only in the whispers of kitchen servants and the pages of forbidden chronicles. Osman's daring escape became a cautionary tale within the palace. The cafes was fortified even further, guards rotated unpredictably, and the slightest hint of disloyalty among eunuchs or soldiers was met with ruthless punishment. In the end, Osman was remembered not as a failed usurper, but as the only prince who had nearly shattered the gilded cage, a fleeting reminder that even in the most controlled court, ambition could still find cracks in the walls.